There is something you almost certainly do after every single meal. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 3 times a day, sometimes more. You do it without thinking. You do it because it feels natural, because your body seems to want it, because the meal is over and this is simply what comes next. Everyone around you does it too. Your spouse does it. Your friends do it. Nobody has ever questioned it, and if someone asked you whether this particular habit could be affecting your memory, your mental clarity, and the sharpness of your thinking for the rest of the day, you would probably say that is the most ridiculous thing you have ever heard. How could something this ordinary, this universal, this completely automatic possibly have anything to do with how your brain performs? I thought the same thing for a very long time. Then I started paying attention to a pattern that kept showing up over and over again with people over 60 who came to me struggling with brain fog, forgetfulness, and that heavy, slow feeling in their head that no doctor could explain. When I asked them to walk me through a typical day, every single one of them described the same post-meal routine. Every single one. Once I understood the connection between that routine and what was happening inside their gut, and once they made one simple change, the results were something none of us expected. I am going to tell you exactly what this habit is. I am going to take you inside your body and show you what happens in your gut every time you do it. I am going to explain why the damage gets worse after 60. Most importantly, I am going to share the one easy replacement that people tell me cleared the fog from their afternoons and gave them back a level of mental sharpness they thought was gone forever. Please stay with me through this entire video because the answer is going to surprise you and it might change the way tomorrow feels from start to finish. Let me walk you through a scene that I know you will recognize because I have heard it described to me hundreds of times. You finish lunch. The plate is empty. The food was good, and now there is this familiar heaviness settling into your body. Your eyelids feel a little heavier. Your limbs feel a little slower. The couch is right there. The recliner is calling your name. The television is waiting. So you do what feels completely natural. You sit down. You sink into the cushions. Maybe you put your feet up. Maybe you lean back and close your eyes for a moment. Maybe you turn on a show and let yourself dissolve into the comfort of not moving. It feels like exactly what your body needs after a meal. It feels earned. It feels right. People over 60 share this exact routine with me all the time, and they describe it with a kind of fondness, like it is one of the small pleasures of their day. I understand that feeling completely, and I would never want to take away something that brings you comfort. What I do want is to show you what is happening inside your body during those minutes and hours of stillness after eating, because when you see it, you will understand why so many afternoons feel foggy, why your brain seems to slow down after lunch, and why that mental heaviness is not just tiredness. It is your gut sending distress signals directly to your brain. Here is what most people have never been told. The period immediately after a meal is one of the most critical windows for your gut health and, through your gut, for your brain health. When food enters your digestive system, your gut needs to do an enormous amount of work. It needs to break down what you ate, extract the nutrients, feed the community of beneficial organisms that live inside it, produce chemical messengers that travel to your brain, and move everything through the system at the right pace. This process depends heavily on one thing that most people completely overlook: movement. Physical movement of your body. When you move after eating, even gently, you are helping your gut do its job. The natural motion of your body assists the muscles that line your digestive tract, encouraging them to contract and push food through the system at the right speed. Blood flow to the digestive organs increases. The beneficial organisms receive the nutrients they need on time. The chemical messengers get produced efficiently and dispatched to the brain. Everything runs the way it should. Your brain receives clean, timely signals, and you feel alert, clear, and mentally present. When you sit or lie down immediately after eating, the opposite happens. Everything slows down. The food sits in your gut longer than it should. The natural movement of your digestive muscles becomes sluggish without the assistance of your body moving. The food begins to ferment in ways that are not ideal, producing gases and byproducts that irritate the gut lining instead of nourishing it. The beneficial organisms that were waiting for nutrients to arrive on schedule are left waiting while the food stalls. The harmful organisms, the ones that thrive in stagnant, slow-moving environments, get an opportunity they would not normally have. They feed on the fermenting food and multiply, producing inflammatory compounds that seep into the gut wall. Think of it like a river. When a river is flowing, the water stays clean and clear. Fish thrive. Plants grow along the banks. The ecosystem is healthy. Now imagine that same river slowing to a near stop. The water becomes still. Algae starts to spread across the surface. Sediment settles to the bottom and starts to decay. The oxygen levels drop. The fish struggle. Within days, what was a vibrant, healthy river becomes a murky, stagnant pond. That is what happens inside your gut when you sit motionless after a meal. The flow stalls and the entire ecosystem suffers for it. I want to pause here because I have a feeling that what I just described is hitting close to home for many of you. You are thinking about today's lunch. You are thinking about how you sat down on the couch afterward and how by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, your brain felt like it had been wrapped in a wet blanket. You are starting to see a pattern you never noticed before, and that pattern might go back years. If that is what you are experiencing right now, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below this video. You can simply write, "I sit down right after every meal and my afternoons are always foggy." That is all. Just those honest words. Because there is someone else watching this video right now who does the exact same thing and has spent years blaming their age, their sleep, their stress, anything but this one simple habit that nobody ever pointed to. Your comment could be the moment they finally see the connection. When you share, you do not just help yourself. You hand someone else a piece of understanding they have been searching for. Please consider it. Now let me take this deeper, because after 60, the consequences of this habit become significantly more serious. The protective lining inside your gut, the barrier that separates your digestive system from your bloodstream, is already more fragile than it was in your younger years. It is thinner. It is more susceptible to irritation. The repair mechanisms that keep it intact are working harder than they used to just to maintain a baseline level of protection. When you sit or lie down after eating and the digestive process stalls, the inflammatory compounds produced by fermenting food and overgrown harmful organisms press directly against this already vulnerable lining. Night after night, meal after meal, this pattern wears down the barrier further. Tiny gaps develop. Harmful particles begin leaking through into your bloodstream. Your body responds with that silent, invisible inflammation that I talk about so often on this channel, the kind that travels through your system without any outward symptoms until it reaches your brain. Once it arrives there, it creates the interference that shows up as fog, as forgetfulness, as that maddening feeling that your thoughts are just out of reach, like trying to grab something through a thick glove. Many of my patients tell me that their worst mental hours are always the 2 to 3 hours after a meal, especially after lunch. They never understood why. They assumed it was the food itself, or their blood sugar, or just normal post-meal tiredness. In so many cases, it was the stillness. It was the sitting. It was the complete absence of movement during the most critical digestive window of the day. There is another dimension to this that I find particularly important. When food sits too long in the gut because movement has stalled, the blood sugar response to that meal becomes exaggerated. The nutrients get absorbed unevenly, in bursts rather than steadily, causing your blood sugar to spike higher than it would have if digestion had proceeded at its normal pace. That spike triggers a hormonal overcorrection, and your blood sugar crashes. By mid-afternoon, you are not just dealing with gut inflammation reaching your brain. You are also dealing with a blood sugar valley that leaves your brain starved for fuel at the exact moment it is already under inflammatory stress. The two problems compound each other, and the result is that wall of fog that hits so many people over 60 like clockwork every single afternoon. I hear this every week. People tell me they dread the hours after lunch because they know what is coming. They know they will not be able to focus. They know they will struggle with words. They know they will feel mentally exhausted even though they have not done anything physically demanding. That dread itself becomes another burden, another source of quiet anxiety that accumulates over time. Now here is where everything changes, and I want to give this part the attention and detail it deserves, because the solution is not only simple, it is something you might actually enjoy. The one habit that people over 60 tell me transformed their post-meal experience, more than any supplement, any diet change, any medication adjustment, is taking a gentle walk after eating. Not a workout, not a power walk, not anything that requires special shoes or athletic clothing or any kind of physical exertion that feels like exercise. I am talking about a slow, easy, comfortable walk that lasts 10 to 15 minutes. That is all. 10 to 15 minutes of gentle movement after a meal, and the difference it makes inside your body is extraordinary. Let me walk you through exactly what happens when you get up after a meal and move your body gently for those few minutes, because the chain of events is the complete opposite of what I described earlier. The moment you start walking, the muscles along your digestive tract receive a signal to activate. They begin contracting more rhythmically and more effectively, pushing the food through your system at the pace it was designed to move. The stagnation that would have occurred if you had sat down simply does not happen. The food gets broken down efficiently. Nutrients are extracted and delivered to the beneficial organisms in your gut on time. Those organisms produce the chemical messengers your brain needs without delay, and those messengers travel to the brain while the information is still fresh and relevant. At the same time, the gentle increase in blood flow that comes from walking delivers extra oxygen and nutrients to your digestive organs, supporting the gut lining and helping it stay strong. The harmful organisms that would have thrived in a stagnant environment never get the opportunity to take over. The inflammatory compounds that would have been produced simply are not produced, because the conditions that create them do not exist when the food is moving through properly. Your gut barrier stays intact. Nothing leaks through that should not. No inflammation travels to the brain. Your blood sugar rises and falls in a smooth, gradual curve instead of spiking and crashing, because the nutrients are being absorbed steadily throughout the walk rather than sitting in one place and flooding your system all at once. The result is something that many people over 60 describe to me with genuine emotion in their voices. They tell me that the afternoon fog disappeared. Not gradually, not over weeks and months, but within days of starting this one habit. They tell me they could not believe something so simple could make such an obvious difference. One person told me they took their first walk after lunch on a Monday, and by Wednesday, their spouse asked them what had changed because they were more alert, more talkative, more engaged in the evening than they had been in months. Another person told me they used to dread the hours between lunch and dinner because their brain felt useless during that time. After 1 week of post-meal walks, they started using those afternoon hours to read again, something they had given up because they could never focus. Another person told me that they had tried dozens of supplements, changed their diet multiple times, and spent hundreds of dollars looking for the answer to their afternoon brain fog, and the answer turned out to be free. It was just walking out the front door for 10 minutes after lunch. I want to be very practical about how to build this into your life, because I know that any new habit needs to be easy enough to actually stick. Here is what I suggest. Start with just one meal. Pick the meal after which you feel the worst. For most people, that is lunch. Tomorrow, after you finish lunch, instead of sitting down on the couch, put on your shoes and walk out your front door. Walk slowly. There is no pace requirement. If you can only walk to the end of your driveway and back, that counts. If you can walk around the block, wonderful. If you prefer to walk inside your house, up and down the hallway, that works too. The movement itself is what matters, not the distance, not the speed, not the scenery. Just gentle, upright, easy movement for 10 to 15 minutes. If the weather is bad, walk inside. If your mobility is limited, even standing and moving gently in place is better than sitting. The goal is to keep your body vertical and gently active during that critical post-meal window when your gut needs movement the most. After you have done this for a week with one meal, you may find yourself naturally wanting to do it after other meals too. Many people tell me that once they felt the difference after lunch, they started taking a short walk after dinner as well, and their sleep improved noticeably. That evening walk helps your gut process